Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ARCHIDEX Fast Forward webinar series. My name is Lillian, and I will be your moderator for today. ARCHIDEX Fast Forward is a webinar series focused on the holistic perspective from the industry. Each session brings together collaboration from the industry with renowned architecture and building professionals sharing their experiences from various perspectives, including industry, business, and education, to address current key issues and topics. Today's webinar is themed Virtual Reality in Architectural and Design by IDA Technology Private Limited. With the increasing adoption of technology in construction industry, construction projects are becoming increasingly complex. Virtual reality provides a way to help construction companies support complex modeling processes and improve opportunities for collaboration across projects. The speaker for today's session is Mr. Gerard Teo. Gerard runs the Innovation and Virtual Reality Department in ID Architects Private Limited. He is also responsible for the integration of computational design and the setup and application of a mixed reality studio. He is inclined towards the application of parametric and optimization methods towards architectural design, as well as the use of building information modeling methodologies in workflow efficiency and design. In 2017, he spearheads Digit Alpha, an initiative for Singapore architects and affiliate consultants, a digital solution which comprises of a building information modeling, virtual reality, mixed reality, virtual design and construction, and project information management. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring to you Mr. Gerard. Hi, Gerard. How are you today?
Hi. Good. How are you, Lynn?
I'm good too. So over to you for your sharing.
All right. Sure. So, okay. Today, what I'll be sharing about is our experience in applying VR, virtual reality, into architectural practice. So, how we can use it for design and other applications. So the presentation is titled Building the BIM Matrix. So what we've actually done is we've, as a technology company, developed the software to make all this happen. So, okay, before I begin, I'll just tell you a bit about myself. So we are actually more than just a technology company. We are an architectural consultancy as well. So in my daily work, I work as an architect. So our company has been around for 32 years this year. So on our journey in BIM in 2010, so in Singapore, actually what happened is our Building and Construction Authority mandated the use in BIM in all our projects above a certain size. So that's where our journey started as well. After that, we started to really see, okay, how can this help us? How can we really have meaningful adoption of BIM? Because it's not an easy thing. So we really look into developing our own talent, our own resources to support all these processes. So in 2016, we started looking at VR as a technology, and we were looking at, okay, how can this actually help us in our work? So from then on, you can see, okay, we've been consistently the top 10 architects in Singapore since and this year as well, in terms of project volume. So in terms of headcount, we are not actually in that number. We are not the top 10 by headcount. So we do leverage a lot on technology to help us make up the gap in terms of productivity and efficiency. So we've also been awarded the BCA BIM Awards and other accolades such as that. So as an architectural consultancy, this is the scope that we look at. So we are not an multidisciplinary firm. We only focus on architectural consultancy and design, master planning, project management, feasibility studies, and we have a department looking at interior design as well. So the areas that we are in is actually mainly industrial projects. So we do a lot of logistics, chemical, wafer fab, engineering buildings. But we do also have a portfolio that covers other sectors. So including institutional, commercial, residential, healthcare. And we have projects in Singapore as well as in other countries such as Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Malaysia as well. So, okay, about virtual reality itself. So why we were interested in it is because it can be used for certain design applications. So here what you see is actually how we can use virtual reality as an interface to start designing our concepts, to start externalizing our concepts. So I think this is an early stage where it's not quite a viable process yet, but there's a lot of potential behind it. So it allows us to reinterpret a lot of information that exists in database. So for example, things that would not normally be accessible to us, we can use virtual reality and the headsets and the goggles and to try and reinterpret that data. But what is really interesting and immediately applicable is that virtual reality allows us to do this kind of interactive coordination where we can interface with other stakeholders in the project and do very meaningful coordination within these construction projects. So I'll tell you more about how we actually apply it and use it for that purpose. So, okay, about VR itself. So VR really is just sensory immersion. So why we are interested in it now is because it has reached a point where it can create a convincing immersive environment. So it's no longer you see like these older technologies which have been around forever. It's not a new thing to try and achieve. People have been trying to create virtual environments for a long time. But the current state of the technology is where it really can put you into another place. So more than just being able to look through the lens, you are more or less physically there. You can walk around. You can have agency within the virtual environment as well. So you can interact with things and get some feedback from that. And you can also, more importantly, interact with other people as well. So I think that is why at this point in time of technological development, we are very interested in VR and its other technologies. So, okay, first and foremost, VR is a communication tool. So the easiest goal to achieve with this is communication. So this helps us, as architects, externalize our concepts. It helps us to communicate our concepts to other stakeholders. So whether it's other consultants, collaborators on the projects, engineers, contractors, or whether it's to the client to tell them, this is actually what we are designing. So traditionally, we've always presented our designs as very abstract forms. So we have our things like our plans, sections, elevations, which as industry professionals, yes, we've been trained to really understand them. But for the layman, it is not so easy to understand. It's, locked behind this abstract layer of drawings where this line means something, this annotation indicates something in the actual building. So we try and move a bit closer where we have 3D renderings, which try and convey the feeling of the space. Okay, this is what finishes will be, this is what the end result will look like. But this also kind of falls short where we are really trying to explain the experience of the space. So what is it like to be here? What is this skylight atrium going to look like? If we shift things around, what would the end result be like? When we communicate this in a virtual environment, it's very easy to understand because you don't need any special knowledge. Everyone has had the experience of being in a space and it's very easily relatable. So we do use this to push a lot of proof of concept, like from the initial stage of the project where it's conceptual massing. Okay, this is the flow of the spaces. This is what the volumes feel like when they relate to each other. And also all the way into finished construction. Okay, what would this detail look like in reality? If we put these two materials together, what kind of effect are we creating? And what would the overall experience of the space be like? So, okay, I'll talk a bit about the overall process that we go through, the overall application of virtual reality. So what we see here in this diagram is actually the overall project flow. So how I read this is we start from the center, and as the construction project progresses, we will move out to the outer radius of the circle. So in the middle, you can see at the very conception of a project, typically we have some information about site. We have a project brief from the client. We have certain meetings to establish the goals that we want to achieve with this. And we go into coordination, we get massing concepts with a preliminary model, and then we start to do basic visualization to communicate the concept. We further develop the scheme with other consultants' inputs, and eventually reach a BIM model. So this BIM model basically is a repository of all the data of the project. So then we go into calling a tender, actual physical construction, defects period, and finally the project gets archived. So some things that we can see here are things like parametric design, which we actually apply throughout the process, and new format, which is a project information management. So these things would stretch out throughout the project lifespan. So what you can see here is we actually have virtual reality in a few places. We can apply it through actually all stages of the project. So I think at the later stage is a more obvious application. So this is, just communicating what the design will look like. So for the developer to tell their end users, okay, before I even build it, this is what the this residential unit will look like. So I think this is a very direct and easy to understand application, but where it's really more meaningful for us is to apply at the earlier stage of the project where it's more preliminary, and it lets us really start to coordinate the data, especially the data that's in the BIM model, to rectify any design errors, pick up any issues, and so that we can avoid them in actual physical construction. I think this would be one of the biggest value propositions of applying virtual reality to a construction project. So, okay, VR itself also has certain synergies with other technologies. So technologies such as 3D scanning. So you can see here, we do use methods such as drone photogrammetry, where we can capture accurate information about the site. We can visualize that. We can visualize the project there as well. We can use it for interior design, where it's the scale is much smaller, and also industrial design, where it's more product related. So you can see different scales from scanning a site to actually scanning a smaller interior space, and then inputting our design and using virtual reality to start to evaluate that. So, okay, that is just a bit about why we are using VR, what it is. So more importantly is, okay, how do we actually implement it? So how do we take all this and actually input it into actual workflow? So the first thing is, we know we need to have an interface for it. So we need to have a space that we can use it for. Virtual reality doesn't just work if you just get the headset, you get a PC that can run it, and it's someone in the corner that's actually just using all this, because it doesn't really have an impact on the project. So what we've done, in addition to developing the software, was we also actually developed the hardware, the space, the interface that would require it to work. So our result is this mixed reality studio. So you can see that this is the actual space that we use. So it's really a multi-use kind of space, where we use this not just for VR, but also a lot of the project coordination. So before also complementary to the space, we look at the process that it's going to be implemented into. So we very strategically implement VR into a specific process. So this process, it's called VDC. So VDC is virtual design and construction. So basically what this is the whole idea of building twice. To start the building in the digital realm first. So to make sure that, okay, we have coordinated everything digitally, the drawings are all in sync, there are no errors there, before going to actual physical construction, where we can avoid things like variation orders, corrective works, which are waste of time and resource on site. So, okay, this VDC process is great. You can see roughly what it is. We start from a design stage and it goes all the way to execution, so physical construction. But the problem with this VDC process is that it's very intensive. It's a very front loaded process. So usually what this entails is a period of very intensive coordination between the consultants and contractors. Typically, there will be a big room approach where it's contractor led, and the contractor will get all the consultants, so your architects, your engineers, QS, and all that into one room. For a full day meeting, and then you start going through every individual item in not a particularly efficient process. So this takes up a lot of time, of course, but we do want the benefits from it. We do want the results. So instead of spending our time being cooped up inside the room for half a day, 1 day every week, we are trying to take virtual reality and this technology to apply it to this process to try and optimize it so that we can try and take away the inefficiencies but still benefit from the end results. So the studio itself, this is what it looks like in VR. So what are some of the important features in VR? So okay, there are actually many VR offerings out there. If you look around, there are many off-the-shelf solutions that can be used. But why we actually went to develop our own solutions, we found that all these solutions out there seem to be developed more around a software developer kind of perspective, which didn't really make it suitable for actual implementation in real construction projects. So some of these features are not unique, but then we found that no package out there really had everything and could be used in a meaningful way in projects. So multiple users is very key. If because for VR it's really isolating someone into a virtual environment. So if you can see all that information there, but then you can't see anyone else, no one else can see what you're looking at, then it's not very effective when we're talking about communication and coordinating. So being able to teleport, a form of locomotion to move around, because the virtual environment, so almost any project you build will be bigger unless you're doing just a single room renovation. It's going to be quite a large scale, so you need a way to actually navigate that. So we have teleportation. You can actually bring clients, you can bring other visitors around, or everyone can move independently. So a method to try and explore that virtual space is important as well. So everything also has to be one-to-one scale, because if you go into a virtual environment and it's not to scale, then there's not much point to it, because you're not really experiencing what it'll be like as a final product. So to add on to this as well, we are also only looking at information that is generated from a BIM model in this case. So the BIM model is basically your digital blueprint. It's what your builder will take to actually construct the process. So what we want to do is to actually look into this rather than just do another artist impression that, okay, we can bring people around, the project's going to look something like this. We want to make sure that, okay, whatever we're looking at is actually going to be built this way. If we pick up any errors in the project, any mistakes in the drawings, we want to rectify it, and we want to know that, okay, this is going to be exactly the way it's built. So, okay, besides just being able to move around, we also want to have certain other features and agenda in the virtual space. So being able to do markups, to do documentation within it. So you can see here, there are actually measurements, we can do sketches, we can start to label the the elements within the environment as well. We can also extract certain information, check what's the grade of the concrete used, what are transmittant values of the glass, so that we can really interrogate the model and make sure that everything is correct. What else is also being able to document everything. So you don't want to just go in, okay, bring the client around, take a look at it, and after that lose any comments. So we want to make sure that we can get tangible results from all these virtual coordination sessions where we can have minutes that are actionable, that can actually resolve issues in the project. So that also comes back to the space we use. So you can see this is actually the same space that we use for the VR sessions. So typically what happens is once we do the VR sessions, we do come back into this coordination space where we can go back, look at the documentation. Okay, what were the issues we discussed? Where are they in the project? How can we actually resolve them? So why we don't actually do this directly in VR is because these are actually the submission drawings themselves. So we are not working on a separate set. We want to be very sure about what we change here to make sure we are still complying with code and all that kind of things. So we choose to flag all the issues in VR, put the details there, and actually come back and coordinate it in a environment where we can be more sure about it, and also produce the relevant documentation. So, okay, overall, the whole VR workflow looks something like this. So what we do is we start from the the authoring software. So in this case, typically we use Revit. So it's important that this is BIM software as well. So if we were to use something like SketchUp instead, which is not BIM construction information, it's just artist impression, is just indicative, then it tends to create more problems than it solves. Because okay, if we go through it, we look at a SketchUp model, but the client gets a very good idea about it. They say okay, they can sign off on any design changes that are existing there. When it comes to the physical building, if it's not exactly like that, which it definitely will not be, because your CAD drawings are somewhere else, and that is actually the construction drawings for the project, then yeah, we're going to have some issues there. So typically, yes, this will be a BIM environment, whether it's Revit, ArchiCAD, or similar. So what we do is we use VR to look directly into this information. So whatever is here, whatever layouts, whatever finishes, whatever details were put into this model, we will go into VR and take a look at them. So once we are in VR, we also want to get some output from these virtual design sessions. So like I said, rather than just looking around, we want to generate actionable items. So what we export from here is a central BCF file, and this feeds directly back into the authoring environment. So whatever issues we raise, we know exactly where they are in the Revit model, and there's no loss of data. So this is the basic iterative loop that we go through, and as the project progresses, we will fine tune the project more. We will resolve more design issues, and the resolution of the project will become finer and finer. So, okay, at a basic level, this is it. But in actual implementation, this is more what it looks like. So, okay, from the same authoring environment, instead of just one model, what we are actually looking at is federated BIM models. So we have multidisciplinary models here. We have an architectural model, we have structural model, we have M&E services. Sometimes subcons have their own models as well. So we are looking at all this holistically rather than just as separate models. We want to see, whether there are any M&E clashes with structures, any subcon installations which are not in the right place and all that. So the software handles the export out into VR, where we have all the different features inside. So your markups, your measurements, your issue tracking. And this interaction actually happens on different levels as well. So we can have studio meetings internally where we are just discussing certain design issues. We can have coordination meetings with the other consultants. We can have meetings with specialist consultants to see, okay, do they have any input on very specific design issues? We also do design reviews and reports to the clients where we get their buy-in on any changes that we are about to make, so that they are always on top of it, that they always know what is happening inside the model. If not, typically the clients do not know what is happening inside the BIM information. So they will look at the drawings that are produced, and sometimes they don't have a good idea. So if they really want to get more information, typically they'll ask like, okay, can you render this view for me? Can you render another angle? And then I think that's a lot of inefficient communication that's happening. So when they go into VR, they get a very clear view of, okay, this is the current state of the project and whether they are okay with it or they can request any other changes. So all these sessions would come up with a coordination file. So what we do here is, instead of having separate coordination files which fragment the information, so this might be very distracting because people have always at different stages of the project. Somebody's on revision 1, somebody's already on version 10. We actually consolidate all of this on the cloud so that it's a central file, so that everyone can see that, okay, these are the issues that have to be resolved, what issues have been closed, what's still outstanding. And this feeds back also directly into the authoring environment. So in a lot of the cases, the people who are doing the coordination and the people who are updating the original model, the authoring, might not be the same person. So this leads to some communication breakdowns in the process. So what we do is we actually solve it by just making the data seamless. So whoever is updating the model on this end, once they see the file, which is essentially a meeting minutes, action items thing, they will know exactly how to update the original source model. And from there, then we will go through the process again with updated issues, and then go and check it in VR. Okay, has making this change caused any other issues? Are we still compliant? Any new clashes created because of this? And then we'll just iterate the process over again. So all this collaboration, one of the biggest benefits of it, especially in this current climate with COVID and safe distancing and people not being able to interact with each other face to face, is that all this can be done non-locally as well. Not everyone has to be in the same physical space. So typically the problem with doing coordinations non-locally in different places, even over Zoom, over Skype, over whatever kind of platform that you have, is that it's not easy to communicate construction issues. If you're just having a meeting face to face, okay, you can see the other party and maybe that's enough. But typically when we're talking about building issues, it always results in somebody opening up the drawings, trying to point to it on the camera. Okay, we are looking at this grid intersection, this plan drawing, someone else has the wrong drawing, and then it's not so easy to coordinate. So when we do this in virtual reality, it's a much more efficient platform. Everyone's in the same place. You can see an avatar of someone else, exactly what issue they're talking about. Because it's in 3D space, they can direct you to the exact issue, and we can discuss resolution methods. Do we need to reroute the M&E services? Do we need to shift a structural element? Do we need to change a specific finish to something else? So because this the platform is immersive, you are in the actual virtual space, all this non-local collaboration becomes a lot more efficient. So what can happen is we have this virtual model which can be hosted anywhere in the world, and people can just drop in and drop out whenever you're required. So instead of having to sit through your whole half day or full day meeting where a lot of the issues, for example, if you're an M&E engineer, it might not all pertain to you. It's only, okay, when they come to this item, and okay, we can have your input on this, and then that's it. But the rest of the 90% of the time is, coordinating issues which might not be relevant to your discipline. At any time, people can drop in and drop out as required, and it's easy to update people on the situation. You don't have to say, okay, this is what has changed since the last time, this is whatever is exactly in this revision. Once you go in, you see the environment and you can get an idea of that. So when people join it can be either as a group, so it's possible that there's another studio somewhere else and they join in as a group, or it can be individuals, anywhere else in the world. So somebody with just a headset, with just a laptop that can run it, can join the session and can interact as well. So all this makes it very streamlined to do coordination. You don't have as many issues with trying to describe the issue, trying to tell them what exactly you're looking at, tell them where it is, and stuff like that. So, I think maybe talking about all this would be a bit hard to understand. So I have a short video here which it illustrates the process. So I'll show it to you, and then maybe I'll explain a bit more about it as the video is playing. So here it's the BIM model. So this is the base of all the data. So all the information actually comes from this model. We don't have, separate sheets of information and stuff like that. Okay, this is just a bit about computational tools, how we can use them to help us design. So here you can see people in the physical space, how they are coordinating, and this is actually what they are looking at. So you're able to see and actually interact with other people in the virtual space as well. So once that is done, we come back into the actual documentation space, and we're able to find the issues that were discussed. We can document that, and then the next time we go into VR, we can check it. So yeah, overall that is a quick overview into what it looks like. So that is part of integrated digital delivery. So yeah, I think overall that is how we apply VR into architectural design and the construction process. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Lillian.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much, Gerard. That was an informational and wonderful sharing today. Gerard, you there?
Yep, yeah.
Hi, sorry. Let's move on. Move into our Q&A session. I have a couple of questions here that I've collected from some of the participants.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you can share more with us. The first question goes something like this. With the use of VR, is there any prerequisite knowledge to design the VR experience for a designer or architect to best present their projects? I think we're talking a little bit about content here.
Yep. Okay. So initially, I think in the early stages, yes, you have to have knowledge about, the game environments. How do you bring it into VR? So that is one of the reasons we went into developing the software also. So one of the main features of the software, if I can just go back to this. So one of the main features of the software is that actually from the BIM model itself, it's a single button press to export it into VR. So all you have to know is about altering the BIM model. So whatever you want to see in VR, you have to create it there. So if you only have layout plans, that's all you can look at. But if you have finishers input, then you can look at that as well. So prerequisite requirements is just BIM. We try not to overload any other information. Once you have the software, you just press the button, and then you can 5 minutes later you can view it in VR.
Okay, looks like a simple enough method to yeah. I mean, your chart looks complicated for someone who's not in the industry, obviously. But yeah, it sounds easy when you try to explain when you explained it to us, though.
Yeah, we try to make it as streamlined as possible so it can integrate with, the existing processes already in construction rather than, you have to go and learn a whole other thing just to be able to use VR.
So is this going to be a long-term thing? As in, how long do you think this project, like, when there's a normal project, there's a time frame to it, right? So what about this virtual project, so to speak? How long should the timeline be? As long as you'd like, or there is a max timeline that you can do?
It will be similar to your typical construction project. So, if your construction project is 2 years, this just ties into that process. So it doesn't really add more time. It would, if anything, cut some of the time in terms of coordination because you can resolve issues a lot faster.
Yeah, because everybody is dialing in virtually, right? So basically, you
Right.
can get things done maybe way faster than waiting
Yeah.
for the time to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, there's another question here. What are the other technical requirements or specifics does one need to look at
Mm,
using your
okay.
using product?
So, I think one of the more difficult parts technically would be the hardware setup. So, because VR happens to be very demanding on your computer hardware, it's not like you can just take any PC and plug it in. You also will need to have the headsets and physical space setup and all that. So we found that this is quite a hurdle to implementation for most companies. So what we actually do is we have packaged everything together. So
Okay.
not now, instead of just having a permanent studio, we design it into a mobile studio. So all you have to do is just get the hardware, plug it in, and then that resolves all the technical setup that you have to do.
Okay. So when you say hardware, does that
Mm-hmm.
mean PC or servers and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's PCs to run VR, the headsets themselves, the
Yeah.
tracking system, and all that kind of stuff. Which, yeah, I think it can be quite intimidating and it's quite difficult to set up the first time. But yeah, which is why we basically package it into this box where you basically just wheel it onto the site that you want to use it, plug it in, and the headsets are all connected. There's no configuration required, and you can immediately use that.
Okay. What about the scale of the project? Does that
Mm-hmm.
make a difference? Smaller scale, lesser people use, hence I would say easier or cheaper startup, as opposed to a big project, a large project, and obviously those that are the ones that will take a few years that to finish.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
that would be a different, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, you're right. So, different scales of projects would definitely have different issues that you have to contend with. What I would say is that VR does not, actually change any of that. So if it's a bigger project, you have more areas that you need to coordinate. So you have to coordinate this specific area. You have to coordinate, your circulation areas, another specific area. So then you have to start breaking it down because it's too much to do in one walkthrough and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's inherent to the project, and VR just lets you look at all those things better. It doesn't really add any. There's no real additional or additional complexity to it depending on the project.
And of course, the system is customizable to anything. I mean, at the
Yep.
beginning stage, the customizing part will take some time first before you can actually roll out the content and everything, right?
So it would be purely when you create the content that is the difference. So if it's a bigger project, you'll be creating more data typically, but on the virtual coordination end, there's not much difference. The one system can actually handle both.
Can it run multiple projects at one go?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, just curious about these
Yep.
things. Okay. Any last words before we probably end the session today? Anything you want to add on to your presentation?
Mm, no, I think yeah, probably that's it. If
Covered most of it.
yeah, I guess if there are any more detailed questions, you can always feel free to contact me.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that's Gerard's contact details there, ladies and gentlemen. I guess that's all the time that we have for today's session. Thank you so much, Gerard, for your most insightful sharing. It was I learned something very new today. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. You've been a great participant. We would like to do a quick survey. short survey too, to let us know how you think about ARCHIDEX Fast Forward webinar series. The link is being shared in the comment section right now, so click on it. And those of you who are watching us from Facebook, you can also click on and become our ARCHIDEX Online buyers. So we look forward to seeing you online, and we look forward to seeing you offline as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.